What's up, everybody? Noah Hiles and Chris Carter here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and we're just going to do a little post-game breakdown on Pitt's 45-7 win over Wofford in the season opener, and this is brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar. Carter, the way we like to break things down, we like to get creative. We like to, maybe reference some old movies. I'm thinking we do a good, bad, and ugly from this win.
Sounds good to me.
All right, sounds good to you?
Yeah.
All right, so for the good, I'll start us off. My good for Pitt is the depth.
Absolutely.
I really liked the depth was on display, and you saw it at almost every position. I mean, Phil Dracovic connected with 8 different players. 8 different players in his first 8 completions, 9 different targets total. You love to see that, especially the depth at tight end there. Just 4 different guys logging catches, some big plays. His one and only touchdown pass came to Carter Johnson. Yeah, tight end there. The depth was also on display. Defensive line, I think 4 different guys had a sack. The secondary showed depth. Just overall, a lot of good depth for Pitt. And in a year where you're replacing a whole bunch of guys who went on to the NFL, some guys who transferred out, to see that kind of depth, and I get it. It's Wofford.
It is Wofford.
But having those guys get those opportunities and making the most of them, I think, means something. What's your good?
My good here is looking at how the way Phil Dracovic operated in this offense. I wrote about this in our side piece after the game, but he was efficient. You're going to look at his stats, Noah, and 200 plus yards, 1 touchdown pass. You're like, okay, whatever. That doesn't seem like a whole lot. But when you go back and look at some of the throws that he made, he was truly impressive. I like the way that he was able to break things down. We talked to him about some of the seam passes he threw right into the middle of a cover 2 defense, making the right reads. He looked comfortable in Frank Cignetti's offense, which we'd heard all offseason about how it was going to be huge for him to reunite with his old offensive coordinator at Boston College. I think that truly came to fruition, at least in the first game. Looked a lot more efficient when they needed to be. Didn't have any 50-yard touchdown passes, but they moved the ball.
And as we move on to the bad, I want to talk about the one drive where he really didn't look good, and that was the opening drive. I think that's really the only bad series of events that took place for Pitt all game. I think they started slow offensively. You and I were watching up in the press box, and the whole first quarter we're saying, get aggressive, get creative.
Yeah.
Why? It felt like they were calling a game for the first quarter, first half that was catered to Keaton Slovis, not Phil Dracovic. But as the game unfolded, things got a lot better. But it was a bad start, and when you start bad like that against Wofford, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you start bad like that against a team like Cincinnati or West Virginia, who are up next, it's a little harder to get your feet underneath you and get some momentum going. So you need a better start, I think, in week 2 next Saturday. What was your bad?
I think my bad was the lack of explosives that we saw for big touchdown plays. That was a huge part of Pitt's offense last year when it worked, was Izzy Abanikanda going for long plays, or Gavin Bartholomew taking like a 50-yard touchdown. Those type of things opened up Pitt's game in some really important moments that got them to their 9 wins last season. But I think one thing that Pat Narduzzi said when I asked him about it, he said touchdowns are touchdowns. That you take them as they come at this point in time. But still, the longest touchdown they had from the first team offense was Phil Dracovic's 23-yard touchdown run. I expected maybe like a 45-plus yard touchdown bomb to Bub Means or Gavin Bartholomew. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen this season. But I just thought that we would have seen more plays like that would have made it easier for Pitt to score, because you're going to need plays like this. But again, maybe the efficiency on the offense allows for more plays like that.
Real quick here, we'll wrap this up with the ugly. I'll go for my ugly. I'm going to go with Wofford's blocking. It was ugly from the start.
They were beat
all
up
the way to the finish. Dayon Hayes started things off with a sack. DeAndre Jules was in the backfield all game. Bam Brima with a sack and a fumble recovery. Just a great showing in the trenches from Pitt defensively. But I think a lot of that had to do with just Wofford not having a single guy who could block the Panthers' defensive line. Chris, what's your ugly as we wrap this up?
I'm just going to go on the flip side of you and talk about Wofford being blocked, and that's how ugly it got. Pitt's offensive line, Jake Cradle, they just moved those guys. Whenever they got in the red zone, Pitt got in the red zone 5 times, they scored 5 times, and it was because they were able to bully Wofford right at the point of attack. Jake Cradle, Blake Sabovic, that whole offensive line. We even saw Ryan Baer go on at right tackle a little bit, and they just looked efficient, strong, just how they're supposed to look when you play a team like Wofford.
That's your good, bad, ugly. Pitt wins its season opener 45-7 here at Acrisure Stadium. For Chris Carter, I'm Noah Hiles. We're signing off. We'll see you next week after Pitt and Cincinnati.